Okay, now, what the Kashiwagi Solution Model is just an easy way to keep things straight. That's all it is. Basically, what we have these foundation characteristics, which are using information, observable actions that you can't miss because they're observable, and things you really can't observe very easy. We're going to have left side and right side, and everything's relative and related. Nothing is ever not related. So let's move on here. People don't understand very much. So the whole trick here is I want a couple nuggets of what I call natural law or characteristics that I can see in people, and I would like to predict everything else that they're going to do when I don't see them or in the future. I want to be able to predict that. Because people are predictable, they control themselves, they learn at a certain rate. Now, people perceive what's already there, they process this information, and only if they understand it can they apply it. If they applied something new, they have changed, and it leads to the perception of more information. Somebody who is quicker goes around this cycle faster or slower? Faster. As people go through their life, should the speed pick up or stay the same or slow down? Nobody ever stays the same. It should always what? No, it should pick up. If it looks like people's processing speed is slowing down, you're in danger there because that person might have always been slow, but you never knew it. And when they got old, you finally realized who they were. Right? If you wanted to know who people are, wait till they get really old. And then they become their true selves. Is that true? Yes, it is. Why? Because most people think they're influenced or controlled, so they're always thinking, I have to do this, and I have to do that. But when they get old, what are they thinking now? You don't even matter anymore. I can do anything I want, and I will act like myself now. And then you see who they truly are. But if you were perceptive, you would be able to see that earlier in their life by following these simple rules. Now, if somebody is more visionary, speed picks up, correct? If somebody listens to a new idea and says, I understand that, I can do that, that makes sense. Are they more visionary or less visionary? More. Processing speed, faster or slower? Faster. Remember, when people change, there's a requirement. That means they had to look at what they did before and what you're proposing, and they have to see a what there? A difference. They have to be able to tell the difference between what they did and what you're proposing. If they can't tell the difference, their processing speed is what? Slow. So when people don't want to change, it's not because they don't want to change, it's because they can't tell the what? Difference. That's why they don't change. Any questions on this? Cycle of learning. And the people who change faster are the type A's. The people who change slower are the type C's. By observation, who do we have more of? C's. Now, when you read the book Atlas Shrugged, she quickly identifies that the type A people are feeding a monster of people who are not accountable, who are looters, who don't care about anybody else. And her solution in the book is that the type A, the creative, the smart people should check out. And when they check out, what happens to society? It collapses. Because there's nobody who's accountable, nobody who knows anything, nobody who can see in the future, nobody who's really smart. All of a sudden, accidents happen more frequently. Accidents are catastrophic. Nobody can do anything. Nobody can get any services because there's no expertise left. Because all the smart people have checked out. And in the book, she's proposing that the people who check out are the smart people. And they go and live on their own, and they live in a utopia. And the people who are still visionary, who want to actually change things, who want to help everybody else, they're identified as fools and not smart. But logic tells us if the event happens only one way, there's a reason why they have more type Cs and fewer type As. And I'm going to propose to you that the only way a type A can truly begin to understand what's going on, understand all the natural laws, is if their type Cs are on. The type Cs cause the stress. They cause the problems that give the type As the opportunity to solve problems and the opportunity to use their head and the opportunity to make things better. And if it wasn't for the type Cs, they would never have that opportunity. So, who is the salvation of the type As? It's the Cs. So go back to your organizations and kiss every type C you know. Because in the end, they make you great. Right. Everybody buy into that? It's an observation of reality. It's got to be true. So type A entity is somebody who's visionary, right? A type C entity is the opposite. Does this mean that people don't change? What's the answer? No, I didn't say that. People are always changing. It's just that some people change at such a slow rate that you have to wait 10 years before you can measure that change. And then you'll find out they drink less coffee than they did before. Hey, that's still change. So what is the objective of the KSM? And how do we plot these characteristics? What we're saying is if you find some of these dominant characteristics and observable characteristics and its left side, they have all the other left side characteristics. But if you find 2 or 3 of these major ones that you can see and that are a foundation characteristic, they have all the other of the right side. And we've looked at this over 20 years. We have not been wrong. For example, who perceives more information? The A. Who has more access to information? Is it the A? How many say it's the A? No. No. Everyone has equal access to the information because it's always there. It's just that some people can see it and the other people what? Can't see it. It is because they have equal access that we know that some can see it and some can't. If some had more access than others, then we'd have to find out how did they get access. Then we'd have no way to predict who they are. No, everyone has equal access. So the ones who are A-types have more left side characteristics. And therefore, if this is information, the one who is the A-type perceives more and uses more of the information. So where is control? Who controls more? Yep. Who manages more? You got it. Who makes more decisions? Okay, right side. Why did you say left side out of curiosity? Okay, look. How long do you need to make a decision on what's going to happen when this bottle falls? Not long, right? So when it's simple and you know it, right, the need for decision-making goes what? Down. When it's not simple like this, but it's complex, the need for decision-making goes what? Yeah. And your risk goes what? Yeah, you got it. Does that make sense? Yeah, this is a really simple one here. Like, okay, let's say I'm going to run 100 tests. I'm going to release this bottle 100 times. What is the probability of when I release this bottle that it's going to stay right there? But I didn't even run the test yet. But you know, right? Because you know the what? The natural law. Right? You know the natural law, you know logic, it's simple to you, so you don't make decisions. Okay, now, look at all the characteristics and look at the left side, right side. These are all observable. If somebody engages you in the beginning, they're treating you like an expert. If somebody waits till they have a problem before they call you, they're actually saying you're not an expert. They're abusing you. Does everybody see how that works? Okay, we have some problems with that. Okay, so let's say you're a vendor, you're a consultant, and they call you in, and there's a huge problem. And you say, why didn't you call me in before? It's because they don't think you're an expert. They just want to abuse somebody. They call you in at the end. They're asking you to fix it, but they're saying your job is to fix it, then we don't need you anymore. They're actually abusing you. They're not treating you like an expert. Because if you're an expert, they would know the expert would come in the beginning, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. Remember that for those of you who take the train-the-trainer exam. If they call you in at the end, you're not the expert. You're like a commodity. They're going to abuse you. Everybody gets more mad at you. Right? It's just what happens. It's a natural law. Why is pre-qualification right side? It's simply because if you have to pre-qualify a contractor, you're saying that all these are qualified and this one isn't qualified, right? Now, who's making that decision? The owner, right? So the owner's making a decision, right? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Bad thing. Why is owner inspections right side? Pardon? It doesn't add value. Who should be inspecting the work? The vendor should. The vendor should know what quality is. That is why when the vendor does their own inspections, that's quality control. When the owner does inspections, that's called what? Inspection, management, direction, and control. When the vendors come to me and say, well, wouldn't you like to inspect the work? I said, no. Why would I want to inspect your work? That's boring. And if there's something wrong there, you fix it. Why waste my time? So they come to me, and they have a document. They say, can you read it? No, I'm not going to read it. Did you read it? Is it good? Then I'll just sign. And they say, well, what happens if something goes wrong? Well, all I did was sign it. It's not my work. Right? I mean, if they come back on me and say, well, you did something wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. All I did was sign it. That's my signature. I vouch for that. The work, I don't. Somebody else did it. Why are you having me sign it? The people who did the work should sign it. So I'll sign anything. Just bring it. Don't make me read it. Any other questions on this? These are the observable. Now we have what? These are difficult to determine, so you should never be making a decision on these. Like you should never say, they're an expert, they show leadership. They're abusive, or they're not abusive. They're visionary. You should never do anything on these, because this is all what? Subjective. That is why in best value, we say, if you say I have a visionary project manager, what do they need behind that so that they get a high rating? Metrics that show that. If they don't have any metrics, visionary. I am more visionary than the other guy. I am more visionary than the other guy. I am the most visionary. You get no points. So then I'm not going to make a decision on any of these. I'm going to go back to these that I can see, that I can confirm and validate, and if I find out they're right side, then all these are right sides. Yes. Now, you have to be careful here. We're all human beings. Are we perfect? No. So everyone's making the movement from what? The right side to the left side. It's just that some are further along, right? Remember that curve of expertise that Seco showed? Yeah, we're further along. And some people are, they're not even on the chart. But everybody's in between, right? So we're headed that way. And so you have the three levels. Conclusion? We have the type A person, we have the type C person. This is infallible. It's never been proven wrong. And normally it's very obvious. And so we sit with people and we watch them, and we can't believe what they do sometimes. But now I believe anything. I just watch what they do. Right? And my famous story comes out of a university. They brought me in, and it was on an IT project. And they were hiring a project manager to manage 5 different implementations of software packages. And they went through the interview process, and they picked a guy. And I wasn't there. Some of my office was there. And finally, they picked a guy, and they said, we're ready to make the award. I said, can I come up and interview him? Oh, yes, please, please. So I said, do you all want to sit in while I interview your top-rated, best value guy? And they said, yes. So I sat there, and I started asking very simple questions like, I said, we're at a certain size university. What is your expectation of what we're going to do with these software packages in terms of service levels, customer satisfaction? How successful are we going to be? And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, maybe you don't understand my question. I said, what do you expect is going to happen at this university if you implement these packages correctly? He said, don't know. I said, but you've worked at similar universities. He said, yes. I said, there's always another way to ask a question. So then I asked him, how do you know in this implementation of these 5 packages, and you're managing this, how will you know when you're in trouble? He said, nobody knows that. I said, really? He said, yeah. I turned to the university personnel and I said, I hate to tell you this, but you have prioritized and picked a totally blind guy. He has no expertise. He will not know what happens until it happens. And you're willing to pay him $1 million to manage this implementation. They looked at me. They said, no, you don't understand, Dr. Dean. You're expecting too much. In his contract, the first 6 to 9 months is so he can study all the data, and he can come up with a really good plan. And based on that plan, now we're going to measure the performance of all these vendors. I said, let me tell you something. A blind person does not have the capability to come up with a plan. If he doesn't have a plan today, he will not have a plan in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. He will never have a plan. You're hiring somebody who will tell you something's going wrong, if it's going wrong, and everybody realizes it's going wrong, and he'll just report it to you. That's who you're hiring. Do you really want to do this? And they told me, just a second, Dr. Dean. Then they turn around. Dr. Dean, we're going to hire him because we think he's an outstanding manager of IT implementations. I said, okay. So I go away. 6 months later, I call them up. I'm really interested to see that plan. Do you have the plan? And they said, no. I said, so what are you? Are you at least a little nervous? They go, we're very nervous. I said, okay, now as soon as you get that plan, even if it's a 7-month mark, 8-month mark, you send it to me because I want to see the expert's plan. 9 months, no telephone call. I call them. Have you gotten the plan? No plan. At a year's time period, I call them back up. I said, don't tell me you don't have a plan yet. They go, not only don't we have a plan, but we fired the vendor. So I said, well, how much did you pay him? $2/3 $670,000. I said, is that all? They said, yeah, that's what we paid him. That's not all, that's what we paid him. I said, yeah, that's best value. They go, what do you mean that's best value? I said, because at least you know what a blind guy looks like. And all it cost you was $2/3 You'll never do that again in your right mind. So that was best value. Some people pay more. Some people pay millions. You got it for $2/3 Silence on the other end. Then I said, so what are you going to do next? They said, we have come to the conclusion that the industry has no experts. So we're going to hire the expert ourselves, and they're going to act in our best behalf. I said, really? So I said, how are you going to hire this expert? Well, Dr. Dean, we've already hired them. I said, what? They said, yeah, we already hired a gal. And I said, well, where is she? I'd like to interview her. And they said, well, it's too late. We already hired her, but she's over in a building looking at all the data. I mean, what did they just do? Did the same thing over again. I said, well, that sounds interesting. Nice talking with you all. If we ever can work with you again, let us know. We need more case studies. Amazing. But people just don't see this, right? And so you have to be really careful when you go through this.